Anthony. All right, we're all together. Everybody please take a seat. Thank you so much. All right. Okay. So, Susan Barnes-Gelt has agreed to participate in our forum today, but unfortunately she couldn't be here because she has broken her hip. So we've made arrangements for her to appear. There she is. Say hello. All right. So we're going to address, she is going to be the opposition speaker on both of these issues, and on the stock show we have 3 presenters in favor and Susan and Pat Texa against, and we'll introduce them when we get to that. But I'd like to introduce Ben Kelly. Ben is the representative for Proposition 2A, and he will make a 5-minute presentation about why this is a good thing, and then Susan will address that as well, and hopefully we'll be able to hear her. We haven't tested this out yet, so let's see what Ben has to say.
Let's do the sound testing first. Susan, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Ben. Can you hear me?
Yes. All right. It's like, I saw The Martian last night. This is very much like The Martian.
It makes me feel very 21st century.
All right. It's funny seeing Susan here on the camera. I have been at that table talking to her about this issue. So, and I gave a presentation a couple nights ago at Thomas Jefferson on this issue, and I nearly had a panic attack because the last time I was in the cafeteria at TJ was to take my SAT exam about 100 years ago. So I had a panic attack remembering that. My name is Ben Kelly. I live in Park Hill. Pretty much lifelong resident of Park Hill, so thank you for all you guys do for our neighborhoods. I'm here to talk about Referendum 2A, which is on your ballot, which should be in your mailbox Tuesday or Wednesday. Referendum 2A is trying to address and solve 2 issues in particular. Number one, we have a cost and affordability crisis in higher education. Not just in Colorado, but in most states. The cost curve to go to school after high school is increasing dramatically. And the result of that is that the burden of attending school after high school, whether that's a certificate program, vocational school, community college, four-year school, you name it, has really increasingly burdened households and families because state governments are unable to adequately fund their higher education systems anymore, and this is particularly true in Colorado. The other problem that we're trying to solve is a workforce and economic development issue in the city. By 2020, when actually today's 8th graders will graduate from high school, 3 out of 4 jobs in the Denver metro area will require some level of schooling beyond high school. And that's just not a 4-year degree. Susan, you're rolling your eyes. That's not just a 4-year degree, that's a community college, associate's degree, or a certificate from a vocational school. 3 out of 4 jobs will require something beyond high school. And that cost curve that I mentioned just now is a huge barrier for Denver students to move past high school, get to something post-high school and complete. One of the biggest reasons why young people drop out of college these days is not really academic, it's financial pressures. So the parts of the proposal, the source of funds, is an 0.8% sales tax, which is less than a penny on $10. That would apply in the city and county of Denver, would not change our competitive position relative to our neighbors and their sales tax rates, and that was a big intent of the design of this. And the use of the funds is really 2 major parts. Part A is a scholarship reimbursement program where scholarship organizations that help Denver students to college and through college can get a partial reimbursement of their scholarship they provide to Denver students. And the idea being that they can help more kids. They can expand the roster of kids that they're helping in school. The second part of the program is a student loan debt relief grant. And in that respect, Denver students going to post-secondary school can get a grant that is applied to the principal of their school loan. Both aspects, we'll get to questions. Larry promised me we'll have questions and answers. Both aspects are paid for performance and are focused on student success. What I mean by that is that the grants and the scholarship reimbursements only occur at the end of the school year to ensure that we are funding students in school who are making satisfactory progress towards their degree. This will be administered by a nonprofit entity, the Denver the Denver Preschool Program, which voters approved in '06 and reauthorized last November. And the accountability measures, very much like the Denver Preschool Program, it has to report annually to City Council. All of the records and meetings are public records. It has to go back to voters for 10 years to be reauthorized. And all of the funds are subject to funding decision by City Council and their city budget every year. The impact, we think we can help 4,000 to 5,000 Denver students make it through an academic college year, a year. So we're still only really kind of hitting a small segment of our college-ready population graduating from high school in Denver every year. But the impact long-term, and I think this is a neighborhood issue, is that I think it's common sense that our Denver residents that have higher education credentials, certificates, degrees, have more job opportunities, they have higher incomes, and those higher incomes allow them to support the city services that we all depend on. A gentleman at a neighborhood meeting a couple nights ago I was at put this a different way, but I thought it was instructive. He said, I support this because I know that not having a college degree is expensive, and that is people that depend heavily on public services. I know this is true because I have two of those people living in my basement right now, my two sons who dropped out of college. So we think this is necessary and an imperative for the city. We created nearly 50,000 jobs in Denver since 2011. And we're going to create more, is to create a pathway for Denver students who may not otherwise be able to go to vocational school, associate's degree, four-year degree to get those jobs. We can wait to see if there's a magic solution at the state level. There should be. This isn't all of the above strategy. It needs to be. It can't just be the city. It's got to be the state. But just like the preschool program, just like the construction defects issue, when the state is unable to course correct something that damages the city should step forward and do something. So that is my summary. I'm going to give Susan her 5 minutes, and hopefully we'll have time for questions and answers. Okay?
It won't take 5 minutes. First of all, this is not a city issue, it's a state issue. Second of all, the needs for the city are so overwhelming. I mean, look at our streets. We have unpaved alleyways. We have incomplete signage. We have a huge list of public works needs. Sorry. And frankly, if we were going to pass, my philosophy of local taxes is if you get the bricks and sticks right, the heart and soul will follow. This is a heart and soul issue, and it's not, in my opinion, it's not in the city's wheelhouse. If we were going to raise 0.8 of 1 cent in a sales tax, which is not a progressive tax, I think we'd be better off putting it into affordable rental housing so that the 50,000 new jobs of people earning less than, $80,000 a year could live in our city. So I think this is a lofty idea. However, it's not, in my opinion, my job as a Denver-only resident to warrant this tax. I'm done.
I have some questions. We'll start over here with Don.
Are there any limitations set up on administrative costs? How is that handled in what you're proposing?
The administrative cap is 10%. Just for comparison's sake, the preschool program's administrative percentage is 7.5%. That 10% range is within the range of many nonprofits that we would recognize, Habitat for Humanity, the Mile High United Way. I mean, Susan and I have talked about this point about keeping the administrative low so the program resources are as strong as possible.
What do you project as total revenue to this, and what is 10% of that?
The revenue on an 0.8 cent sales tax is projected at about $10 million a year.
So the administrator will be capped at $1 million a year.
And we will be working with public high schools, probably 45,000 kids going to 40 plus schools. They have to go to schools in the state of Colorado. I'd like to mention that. The student eligibility is you have to be a Denver resident for 3 or more years. You have to be attending a post-secondary school in the state of Colorado. And you have to fill out the FAFSA, the Federal Financial Aid form, so that we can calculate how much of the scholarship reimbursement or the student loan debt relief grant applies to you.
Yes,
Does Susan want to add to that?
Well, I think the other thing that concerns me is that the qualifiers in terms of income can be a family earning up to $90,000 a year. So I think that's a bit of a stretch. And I also think, and Ben, the typical amount of subsidy is how much per semester?
The maximum amount, and it's on a sliding scale, Susan. So very much like the preschool program, the amount of subsidy is lower the higher the household income is.
Right.
So that $90,000 ceiling will get the smallest amount of financial help. The resources, we have not calculated the sliding scale yet. That's going to be left to the kind of construction of this. The resources are going to be loaded towards the lower income kids because that's who we want to help. But go ahead, Susan.
Can you help me understand how you arrived at the $90,000 ceiling?
Yes, I'm going to talk a little federal financial aid mumbo jumbo right now, so bear with me. To qualify for a Pell Grant, you have to make less than what they call 1.0 of the federal Pell limit amount, which for a family of 4 in Denver is $60,000. And that's on a sliding scale. So that's to qualify for federal financial aid assistance. Many scholarship organizations will go up to 1.5 of the Pell limits in helping low-income and lower middle-class income households. The intent of this was to reach up higher than that. And this is a principle actually from affordable housing, I think, that applies here. Because a student coming from what we would call a 2.5 of Pell household income, and 2.5 of Pell for a family of 4 in Denver is $90,000 household income. A kid at that level has too much household income to qualify for federal financial aid to go to college. But their cost hurdles to go to college for that reason are substantial because of the cost of attendance. So we do go up to $90,000. That's to reach into kind of the middle income, that's above 100% of the area median income. But it's to give some resources to what I think most people would call middle income households in Denver who are increasingly challenged to afford to go to college.
Okay, we have to move on quickly here, so.
Well, she raised her hand. Very
Yes,
good.
A
Bonita.
long time ago. So is this relevant? I mean, I don't consider 90,000 low income, but is this just for state and community colleges? You're not paying for private colleges with this?
They can attend a state, community college, vocational school, or four-year school, or a non-profit private school. That includes, in the state of Colorado, the big ones are DU, Regis, and Colorado College. I'll add that those schools, for low-income households, provide an extraordinary amount of financial aid to low-income kids. This helps them close the rest of
I
that
was a
area.
graduate of Colorado College.
Hey, George.
I'm going to be the devil's advocate here.
Is that okay, Susan?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to be the devil's advocate. It's quite noble, this cause. However, as I said in the Denver Post after a 23rd August editorial, my first thought was, what a wonderful political plum to have, especially if you're the one appointing those who make the decisions, who's doling out the dollars. I can just see the possibility of favoritism creeping into the decision-making process. Not saying that it would, mind you, but it sure could. And with the mayor appointing 5 of the 6 committee people, is that correct? One coming from the city council. Please?
6, all of them approved by city council. 6
Yes, but the mayor appointing them. The mayor's appointing them. And given his past several appointees that have fallen on disfavor in this organization, I think he ought to just stick to his job of taking care of the city. That's all I have to say.
Okay, we're going to have to move on to our next forum unless somebody has one more question. No?